meeting to order and welcome everyone back. I squail siem, nat sietya, I nasqualawan puanas I namnata. We respectfully acknowledge that we are meeting on the traditional and ancestral lands of the Coast Salish people where we live, learn, and play. Motion to adopt the agenda, please. Moved by Trustee DeGroot, seconded by Trustee Dolan. All those in favor? Motion carries. Moving to the minutes of the June 4th, 2019 open board meeting. A motion to adopt the minutes, please. Moved by Trustee Dolan, seconded by Trustee Thorne. All those in favor? Motion carries. Moving to recognition and delegations, and the first and only, Lake Cowichan Fire Department Reed Fire Smart. Please come forward and let us know who you are.
My name is Steve Batcher. I'm the Assistant Fire Chief, Lake Cowichan Fire Department. I've been in the fire service for 25 years and I'm employed by the town of Lake Cowichan as a fire risk manager. Part of my duties include public education and training of the public in initiatives that are set forth by our fire department. One of the initiatives we took on in 2016 is Fire Smart program through Fire Smart Canada and through Fire Smart BC. I'm not sure if you're familiar with at all about Fire Smart, but when I got the letter and it said that I only had 10 minutes to talk, it was, I don't have a 10-minute presentation. Most of my presentations are an hour, 4 hours. So I thought I would just talk to you about Fire Smart. I have you want to pass those around. I have just a brief explanation about the principles of Fire Smart. And Lake Cowichan, we have been very active with the Fire Smart program since 2016. We started off with a Fire Smart grant of $10,000 through the government to do some public education. We also got funded to do a community wildfire protection plan. We have part of our Fire Smart education was we got worked with our community and we generated enough interest and training in our community that we have 6 recognized Fire Smart Canada communities, which Monroe Grove is one of the community champions for Woodland Shores. And they're the first 6 on Vancouver Island in our area. We currently have 2 more that are coming online this year. So we're very, very active in working with our community to help better preserve home and property in the event of a wildfire. We know that it's going to happen. It's not a matter of if anymore, it's a matter of when. We're not, doomsday sayers, but this is the only year out of the last 3 that I haven't been away to assist in the wildfires. We're very fortunate this year. We've seen the devastation, Monroe has as well, seen the devastation that wildfire causes communities as a whole. So we're working very hard to prepare our community for that event. We have, with Fire Smart, there's 7 disciplines of Fire Smart. There's vegetation management, there's public education, legislation planning, cross-training, and interagency cooperation. So we're working on all those different aspects. And the one I'm here to talk to you about today is education. We would like to bring School District 79 on as a stakeholder and a partner in working in Friendship Trail and Park next to Paulson School. We plan to put a demonstration forest in there with signage and education material so that we can talk to people. It's very central in our town and people can see what Fire Smart principles are and what's Fire Smart and what isn't. And we'll have as I say, it's a demonstration project, so all the way through. But besides that, we want to work with Paulson School. I've had conversations with Fiona Somerville. Unfortunately, our grant funding came through towards the tail end of last year, so we weren't able to get all the inroads started before the school year ended. So we're kind of catching up now. Had a meeting with Shannon Steininger from LCS. He's interested in bringing some students on board. We have education kits on order. that it's a whole program that we like to integrate with the kids in the school, working, assisting us in doing the demonstration project. We have Couch and Trailblazers Society on board, Quatson Forest from Duncan helping. Lake Couch and First Nation is interested. One of our other Fire Smart communities, Brookside Village, is another nationally recognized Fire Smart community. And then the Couch and Lake and River Stewardship Society is also on board and going to help with us. So we're it's a very well organized, we feel, project going forward, and we're hoping for success with it. And it's a community. We're bringing all the facets of the community together, and it's a heavy component on the education. We've got some education kits on order through Fire Smart Canada. Their website is fire that you can go to view some of this material is firesmartbc.ca. It comes with magnetic boards, you know, that we can, and there's a whole series of curriculum that's been developed by Fire Smart Canada. My daughter's a teacher up in Chemainus, and she was going to originally help me with the curriculum, but then she didn't need to because all the curriculum was supplied. So our goal is to, years ago, when we were all younger and we're in school, we'd have somebody from the fire department come and talk to us about home safety and fire safety and, you know, around the home, and then the invention of smoke detectors and all that. And we, you know, done a lot to curb the fires in the homes and losses, both of life and property in the homes over the many years, and many talks and visits through the school. This is where the next focus is especially for us, where even in Duncan, where we live and we're all surrounded by forest, we need to be cognizant of that and do what we can to protect our home and property. And the way we do that is start with education and working, you know, hopefully with the kids, and they'll just grow up with it and become interested in it, and that's where we're going to affect the change. So I thank you for your time, and hopefully you'll be able to support us in our work on this project. Does anybody have any questions?
Any questions, trustees? Trustee Crowe and then Trustee.
Just a comment, having spent years as an interface response team with MOF, I really appreciate this.
Thank you.
Trustee Hutchins?
Do you see that the demonstration forest around Paulson will be setting up zones similar to this? Is that your intention?
Our intention is to mimic that, where we would say this represents the work that would be done in this zone, yes. And explain why that is done in this area. We have to be cognizant and careful because there's a stream that runs through there, and that's why we're getting the Couch and Lake and River Stewardship Society to help us out with that, because there's, once you get near the streams, there's a whole different ball of wax that you got to deal with.
Thank you. Further questions or comments from trustees? Trustee Crowe?
Just wanted to say thank you for all you do.
Oh, you're very
Keep
welcome.
us safe
Okay,
and educated.
yeah.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Anything further from trustees? And we'll just reiterate that on behalf of the board. What an amazingly inclusive and important project for your
Thank you.
community. Thank you. Thank you for coming today
Okay.
to let
Great.
us know. Thank you.
All right. Thanks for your time.
And though not all on the agenda, one of the champions that Steve referred to was a champion in our school district who is leaving us. And this is the last board meeting that our Director of Operations, Monroe Grove, will attend with us. And so we'll ignore his mischievous little but we'd just like to say how much we've appreciated having you as part of our staff and part of our admin team. You have been here 35 years, so certainly almost the most. I'm not sure about Trustee Perch. But that is incredible history that we're going to lose, and I hope that you will still be available when people call and that you'll still come and visit and be part of things not only in Lake Cowichan but in the whole Cowichan Valley. So on behalf of the board, we'd just like to offer you a thank you card which says thank you. And a little treat that we can imagine what you're going to do on your deck.
Thank you.
You are basking in the sun in Cowichan and saying, I'm so glad I'm not at the board. Okay, back to business. Item,
No speech?
no speech.
No, I'll just start crying.
No. Oh, that's very
You can
nice.
stand on the stool.
Okay, item 5, report of closed board meeting. Mr. Seconds.
Thank you. The board met in closed session just prior to open. We had quite a robust agenda, given that we haven't met since June in closed session, so we didn't complete it, and we will be returning to closed session following the open meeting now. We did manage to go through a number of personnel and property items.
Thank you. Moving to item 6, old business A, the action list on page 14. There are quite a number of completed items, so we can all feel good about that and thank our staff for all that they do. Is there anything that staff wishes to comment on, Mr. Seconds?
Just around the cannabis retail rezoning applications policy, we do have a draft that we're hoping to bring to the EDC.
Thank you. And Superintendent Gray?
I want to speak around the childcare spaces funding application. We have 3 in our district, and we have a formalized team that consists of the secretary treasurer, director of operations, and associate superintendent who will be moving forward on that planning, which is very intense planning, so they were working toward that end goal. And then secondly, with regard to the legacy wall, we have a photograph of the current trustees that we will be looking to apply a bit of a plaque at the very bottom in terms of identifying names. And we have, at this point, looked at a potential wall here in the boardroom. And so we'll be moving forward around that. And then in addition to that, we'll be looking to see what archives could be, we could look into to bring forward some past boards that we could also add to the legacy wall.
Thank you. Any questions or comments from trustees? Okay, moving back to item 7, superintendent of schools.
Okay, 7.11. I'd like to, if I could, ask Mr. Darcy Hoff and Ms. Anne Hilfinger to stand up. Darcy is our, I'd like to introduce Darcy as our new principal of Cowichan Secondary School, and Anne is our temporary vice principal filling in, and we'd like to welcome you and thank you very much for coming to Cowichan Secondary School.
And on behalf of the board, we'd just like to say we're delighted to have you join our team. It's an excellent team, and we know you'll fit in, so we really appreciate you coming as well. So thank you.
7.1.2, I'd like to also introduce our Director of Operations, Richard Dybel. Would you like to stand up, Richard? And then might as well remain standing, and we'll introduce also Kelly Kinghorn, our Manager of Health and Safety.
And again, we are delighted to have you. Thank you for coming. And back to work.
Okay, all right. Okay, I'll move on to 7.2 for board information. 7.2.1, I'd like to draw your attention to page 16. On page 16, we have a strategic planning process that we started last year. Last spring, we looked at our first phase, and that's where we looked at developing a visionary strategic document with regard to looking at our reflection. What have we done for the last 3 to 4 years? What kind of research do we know, and analysis of where we are in our journey. So that was our exploration stage. We are now moving into our phase 2, and that's where we want to engage our community. And so at this point in time, we'll be looking at engaging in a process with our Indigenous leadership in our communities. We will also be asking our principals and our vice principals to engage all of our students and our staff and their personnel and their parents in a process around engagement in terms of what do they hope and dream for their future in the school district. We'll also be working with our advisory groups and our community from August to November. And then if you look at phase 3, this is where we want to excite our community. And this is where we want to formalize our plans, we want to celebrate, and we also want to action the strategic vision and develop our foundational plans. And that would be from November to March.
Thank you.
Any questions?
Trustee Crowe.
Will there be some, as programming goes along and consulting, will there be some schedules available for trustees so we know when and what's coming up?
Well, what we've asked our schools to do would be to gather input from all of their students, their staff, and personnel, and look at a process that would work for them at a local level.
Mhm.
And we're looking at a bit of a due date around October the 24th, so that they can ask those important questions of their students and their staff and personnel. And so I would imagine that they would all have their own schedule around that. We want to leave it a little bit flexible so that they can incorporate that time with things that are already currently going on at the school site. However, I'm certain that that schedule could come forward to any trustee so that they could be a participant or engage in that process and see what's happening at the school site.
No, thank you. Could I just ask about PACs?
Oh, yes,
Yes.
yes. And so when we make reference to parents, we also are inclusive of PAS as well.
Thank you. Anything further on this item? Okay, moving on then.
All right.
Update.
I'd like to, if I could, invite our communications manager, Mike Russell, to do a very small and short presentation around our storytelling strategy.
Well, thank you all for having me on the first board meeting back to work here. Just gonna get this going here. And so part of what I worked on over the summer was, I'll call it a long promise strategy, our storytelling strategy for the Cowichan Valley School District. And this was, or is, let's start this here, Trustee Croft. This is part of our communications plan. So the storytelling strategy is one of the layers within our communications plan. That communications plan will encompass things like our graphic standards. It'll encompass our brand narrative strategies. It'll have our storytelling strategy in here, our emergency communications plan. So this is part of the work, so don't think this is just all inclusive of everything we're going to do in the office this year. But this is definitely the exciting part for me. Not that emergencies aren't exciting, but they're very different exciting. So I'd like to talk a little bit about storytelling. And last year what I did when I came to the district is I really didn't have an idea of what stories that we're going to tell that we're going to stick with our communities, what we're going to resonate. So I did, my strategy last year was basically throw everything at the wall and see what sticks. And that's what I told principals and teachers, and I was out doing a ton of events and telling them in a ton of different ways. So we're able to take a lot of really good information from that, and I want to run through that a bit with you today. One of the best things we did, or we did last year just as we were finishing up, I think it was July 3rd, we had a principals and vice principals meeting. And so I had a little bit of the framework ready for the strategy, and I brought it to them. And my question to the principals was twofold. One was, what do you think the story of your school is now? So what do they perceive it is out in the community? And number two is, what do you want it to be? So out of all those reflections that came back on what you want the story of your school to be, this one really spoke to the work that we did last year and the work that I wanted to continue to do this year. So I asked those two questions in as well. With those two questions, I gave them 5 circles, and in the 5 circles, I asked them to tell me what they thought the most important criteria to storytelling within their school and within the district was. as they had these spaces to put in whatever they thought of. So they took some time, they did that, and they came up with a really good list. I was able to take that list, I put it into just an online computer program, and it tabulated it for me, so it's super easy doing my work for me. And the number one thing that our teachers, or our principals and vice principals said about stories is they wanted to make sure the stories were learner-centered. So they focused on the learner. It doesn't matter if we're in operations and we're talking about somebody who's doing maintenance on a school, the story behind that is why, right? It's all for our learners. So that's where it first came up, is they all wanted to be learner-centered. They definitely wanted to talk about the unique learning experiences that were happening, and with a focus on community, and that was huge. So I took that information, and I took the information from what I gathered over the school year, and we had done 126 stories, so that gave a lot of information. But in those stories, I was able to see, okay, you know what, stories about Indigenous education were very highly engaged with. Stories about anything to do with outdoors were very highly engaged with. Students who did stuff for the community, so selfless acts or donations or things like that. So we were able to take those, but those were themes that I didn't want to stick with. I didn't want to say that every story you tell me out of your school has to do with outdoor education or Indigenous education. So I wanted to take that back a little bit and to see what was underneath those stories. And what we came up with looking through all 126 of those stories, and the ones that really resonated, were stories of hope that are future focused. And those really resonated with our community. So I took those two together, and I created our guiding principles for storytelling for the Cowichan Valley School District. So when somebody calls me and says, I have a story idea and I want to tell a story, and we've talked about this with the principals and their work is right in here, we could say, okay, how does it align with some of our guiding principles? And not every story has to hit every guiding principle all the time, but we have to have the flavor that's running through the narrative of our stories throughout the year. So this helps us take all the great ideas and pick out the ones that we're really going to focus on and tell. So the storytelling strategy, as you'll see, is a bit of a distillation process. So we're having these great big ideas, we're selecting the ones, which is what our guiding principles do. They're going to select those stories, and then we're going to show on how we're going to tell those stories. So part of that is work that I'm doing right now with a group called Shared Story. And they're a group predominantly out of the United States, that I was able to get in contact with through the Deeper Learning Dozen when they were here last spring. And the work that they're doing is really focusing on showing and showcasing public education as a public good. And we know there are lots of other political forces at play within education, both here and within the US, that are really shining a different light than I think the story that we want to tell. And so the focus of this group is to take educators, educational advocates, deep researchers, and put us together to really focus on the stories and telling them a similar way across all of our stories. And so it's not just the work that we're doing here in Cowichan Valley, but we will see the veins of it going through our partners throughout North America. So part of what they did is they made a strategy screen. And the strategy screen is a very well-researched screen that talks about how to tell your stories. So we've now gone from finding our stories through our guiding principles. We've now brought it down to our strategy screen, which is going to help us refine the stories that we tell. So this is an excerpt from that strategy screen. It is a little more in-depth than the little boxes that I put up here, but it really does paint a good picture. When we're looking at advancing a bold vision, offering solutions and inspiring action within our communities, navigate, leverage, and shift frames, and that one's really just about this whole construction of creating that network of people and really telling stories in a similar way, illuminating structural inequalities, and building power and participation. So taking our youth that are underrepresented, and we see throughout our communities, and really showcasing the things that they bring to our communities. So some people ask, why stories? Like, I'm all about stories, and you obviously know that because I tell stories and I talk about stories, and that's all I do. So why stories? And stories are really important because the stories that we tell about ourselves, about our communities, about our families, that is our reality. And I told this to the principals and vice principals. They got a chuckle out of it, so I'll tell it here. If you look at my Instagram account, you'll see nothing but world travelers who go bike packing on solo adventures out in Mongolia, and they're tenting every day. They're living 365 days a year in a tent, and they're eating all sorts of weird stuff and having all these grand adventures. That I like to see myself like that. I love being on a bike. I love being outdoors and stuff. I love doing that. But if you really wanted to speak to the true me, you would sell me marketing things that would have to do with me doing the dishes at 8 o'clock at night in my kitchen. Because that is what I do every day. I'm not on my bike 365 days a year. I'm not doing these grand adventures a lot, but I'm doing the dishes every night. So we're really trying to focus our stories to talk to people's perceptions of their community and really start to shift that deep understanding of what they have. So we've now got our stories, we've chosen our stories, we know how we're going to tell them. So what's our goal? Our goal this year is to inform and inspire our audiences throughout our community in North Cowichan and Duncan, but also do that on a provincial and national level. And we're going to do that in 5 separate ways. The first is doing individual school stories. And individual school stories are going to be minute to a minute and a half long videos, very small sort of mini documentary series, or documentary size, talking about what inspires that school. And is it a student who's doing something for their community? We had, the best example is in Chemainus, and I'll never forget this. It's Gracie in Chemainus, who in grade 2 last year decided she would start a coffee cart in the mornings and would literally walk around school with a coffee cart, filling up teachers' coffees for donations so she could send it to Children's Cancer Society across the pond there in Vancouver. She also grew her hair out to shave her head so she could have wigs for kids. Grade 2. Like, if that doesn't say, tell a story about your school, I don't know what does. So something like that would be one of these individual school stories. Our mini documentary series, we're going to continue that with a focus this year on what our community asked for, which was investments in skills and trades. In our budget survey, that was the #1 thing they asked for. We do a lot of that, so that told me last year that I didn't do a good job of telling the community about all the great work that's happening. So this year we're going to do about a 10 to 12 minute mini documentary on skills and trades and how that goes from kindergarten all the way right through. Our in-house stories, that's me out with the camera doing what I did last year, and there'll still be lots of that going on. We've also talked with our Indigenous education partners right across the way there, and 2 things that came out of that were we're doing Hello Dolly, which is everything you want to know about an elder but we're afraid to ask. Dolly loved it. I was so excited that Dolly loved it, but that was the scariest pitch of my life, I'll tell you right now. And the other one we're going to do is Hulkaminum Word of the Week. And so that is, we have some master's level graduate students in linguistics in Hulkaminum who work right over there. And so we're going to take that expertise and we're going to showcase it doing Hulkaminum Word of the Week. So now we can include our community in our learning of the Hulkaminum languages we do in our classrooms. And the last one that we're going to do is media outreach. So didn't do enough of this last year, and I'll freely admit that. But really contacting with our local, provincial, and national media about stories that are in the news or about things that we're doing that have a scope not only within our Cowichan Valley District, but beyond. So that's another focus of what we're going to do this year. And that's how we're going to tell our stories. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Any trustees have a comment or question? Trustee Taylor, and then trustee
Can't help
Hutchins,
but
and
think
then
how lucky you are, thank you, because your stories resonate, they're well written, they're well photographed, you catch people's imagination, and then you put together this, that's great, I'm really excited.
Thank you.
Wonderful.
trustee Hutchins.
Just gonna say, wow.
Yeah.
Okay. Trustee Crop.
Yes, wow, but,
It's okay.
yeah,
There's always a
Anyway,
but. Okay, so it's, yes.
are there ways, I see a lot of individual stories, which I know manifest our community, but are there sort of group stories or shots with lots of kids in them? You don't want to see sort of an elitist thing grow out of something like this.
Mm-hmm. To answer your question, the individual school stories are just school stories. They can be about a group of kids doing something, they can be with the whole school doing something as a community project. But I wrote it as an individual school story, not an individual within a school story.
Okay, got it.
So maybe that's a bit of a clarification. And then my stories that I tell just take on a range of bodies.
Yeah.
So it can be one student, it can be whole student, it can be community groups. So we've done a lot of different things and we'll continue to do that this year.
Thank you. Any further comments, questions? Okay, Thank you, congratulations. You've learned through last year how
Yeah.
this is going to make a difference in communication. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much.
Okay, back to the agenda. Superintendent.
All right, thank you, Mike, appreciate that. 7.2.2, I'd like to start with my update. I have a number of things listed here, but I'd like to first start off with the fact that I want to acknowledge and share, recognizing all of the staff district-wide who did so much work over the summertime. We had our HR, we had finance, we had, people were still getting paid in terms of accounting. We had many things being ordered out of the purchasing office. We also had our staff out there with regard to operations, doing a number of projects. We had our bus drivers taking care of the buses, doing some training. And then also on top of that, the principals and the vice principals and the clerical staff getting our schools ready for opening day. So all of this work certainly happened by all of our staff across this community, and I so appreciate the work that they've done. And I think that we've had a great startup day, and I could say that everyone's going at it and doing the job that they do best. So I just wanted to share that appreciation. Secondly, on my list, we had a number of people from senior team go to the BC Superintendent's Associate Summer Leadership regular annual event, and there we would have heard from the Ministry of Education. We would listen to Scott McDonald, and the focus area from the Ministry of Education would be continuing on student learning, also on the fact that we have new curriculum that's being implemented this school year, and it's for grade 11 and 12. So this is the year that is finally being implemented. We also heard about the framework for enhancing student learning, and this is where the ministry will be working with some districts regarding how do we actually do the good work that we do, what kind of evidence do we bring forward, and how do we report back to the Ministry of Education. We happen to be a pilot district who raised our hand and volunteered to participate in that work. As well, the ministry is going to continue working and focusing on mental health, children in care, and also reconciliation. So we were able to hear much to do about all of the things that they've been focusing on for the last 3 to 4 years, and there really hasn't been a shift in the direction at all. Moving on to the third bullet, and please interrupt me if you have any questions as I go through. On page 17, we will continue with our partnership with the Deeper Learning Dozen. That's with Harvard University. And on page 17, if I could just draw your attention to that, this is year 2. Our mission is there with regard to that partnership, and this is around transformation and equitable access to deeper learning experiences. We'll be really diving down deep around the deeper learning principles, which is around that leadership accelerates emergence, that equity or inequity is structural, and adult learning and student learning are symmetrical. And that was another aspect of the BC Superintendent's Summer Leadership Institute. We also did some work around that. We are we're partners with 11 other districts here. So you can see in the province of BC, there would be 3 more partners that work with Harvard, as well as 8 from different areas in the United States. Our district team this year is going to change up a little bit. We will be sending at times a superintendent, at times an associate superintendent, director of Indigenous Education and Learning Engagement, as well as this year where we will be adding in 2 principal representatives. And so we will be having consistent principals attend the Deeper Learning Dozen events and convenings, along with 1 or 2 of us from the senior team. And then I've also added in the upcoming convenings and the dates and the times and the places that we will be engaging in that partnership.
Can I just ask, what is the number of years that this project goes on?
3.
3 years.
So we're going into year 2, and there'll be 1 more year after this.
Trustee Croft?
These are all super important values, I think, and I think that in many ways, these are influenced by governance. Does any of it ever sort of bubble up to us? Because it would just seem that these are all concepts that we do try to bring to our decisions all the time.
I would say that when we look at our strategic planning process related to some of those values, you'll see in there, there's equity and there's inclusion. But I think that that is something that I would like to embrace a bit more, provide some more learning opportunities for our folks in the field, but also to the board around the Deeper Learning Dozen. It is research-based, well thought out of, and with regard to some of the foundational principles, you could hear in Mike's report that it is really around similar types of work around equity. And so we know that leadership is very, very important to how we actually lead our school districts. And in a time that we are in BC, I think that these learning principles really represent who we are as a learning organization.
Love it. I look forward to that. Thank you.
Okay, moving on to bullet 4. Just wanted to just alert you that we have introduced or revised 7 new administrative procedures. So we've done some work around that. I'd like to thank the staff who really focused their attention on those admin procedures. In the near future, we could bring them more in detail to you, but I think one that was, quite relevant was around how we conduct ourselves around social media. And so there's been some deep work done around that, and so that whether it be a staff member, a student, or any one of us in terms of how we actually present ourselves on social media is very important. So that AP has been revised and is out in the field right now.
And so it will come to the EBC?
Well, that would be admin procedures, not policy. So this would be the working documents in terms of how we work through that. So it's policy that would come to the board.
Thank you. Can I just say that as far as admin procedures, like there are many, many admin procedures, and I'm not sure that the board has really had an opportunity to, first of all, understand them, and people beyond the school district for sure don't understand the difference between policies and admin procedures. They ask us how we are operating in a particular area, and I know myself, I ran to the policy or admin procedures handbook, but I'm not sure I've ever really understood the total context, because I have not been involved with the discussion at all. So it's just something that staff might want to think about. How do board members become conversant with the admin procedures as well?
I'm just going to respond to that. I know that when we went to the principals and vice principals, they reviewed 22 APs. And that wouldn't be all of them. They would just be relevant and important for staff members to know what's happening in the school with regard to that. So what I was thinking that for maybe our next meeting at the EBC, we could bring forward the newly revised admin procedures so that the board could take a look at them. They're quite dense, and they could be 3 to 4 pages long with regard to some of our procedures. And we do have a team here at the district who there will be a lead person, and there'll be a group who will actually vet them, look through them, make sure that they represent our values and what we believe in. So we can certainly do that.
Thank you. Trustee Crawford, sorry.
So just to be clear, I'm the one that needs it really clear. So this is an admin procedure, the immunization document?
The one that is attached, no, that would have come from the Ministry of Education.
Okay, so
Separate topic. That's okay. Are we ready to go to that?
Yes, we can go to that one, the immunization requirements. We can go to the immunization requirements, which would be on the following page. And it is a 2-page document around the new regulations related to immunization. And so the responsibility is not, it's not incumbent upon schools, but right now, what the public health unit is requesting from parents is that they bring forward their immunization records, and they will be touching base with parents and or families with regard to them. And so our responsibility as a school is just to continue with our regular immunization programs around grades 6 and 9. But with regard to this particular matter, it's only with the parents and families that they have a responsibility to showcase those records to the public health unit.
Trustee Hutchins?
So this is a clarification from the province of British Columbia. But this seems to be contrary to the experience we happened to have last spring. Because I thought we had to provide that information to the measles outbreak in Vancouver and Vancouver Island. So this is actually saying no, we don't have to do it.
Yes, I'll respond to that. Yes, initially when it first came out last spring, there was high expectations of schools to provide records and communicate with the public. But this has been a bit of a new regulation where you can see that the role of schools is not expected to change as a result of this regulation, because it's now the public health unit who will be reaching out to families.
This is good.
Yes.
It is very good.
That's where it should live.
Okay, non-instructional day.
All right, moving on to the non-instructional day on September the 24th. On page 20, you'll see a very abbrevered poster form in terms of what will be happening. As you recall, last year, our very own Gina did some work with regard to surveying all of our union representatives and union groups to see what could be very helpful around some of the needs that they may have. And so we have a keynote that's coming in around healthy and respectful workplaces on September the 23rd. And her name is Deborah Connors. And so all of our staff across the system will be expected to attend from 8:30 to 10 to hear what Deborah Connors has to say. And then following that, she will be working with all of our principals and vice principals and our managers throughout the rest of the day in terms of how do we continue to build on healthy and respectful workplaces and that environment in order to support a change in our organizational culture to make it a bit more healthy and a bit more responsive. So that will be happening on September 23rd. And I'd like to also share my appreciation because this work was done in collaboration with our principals and our vice principals, as well as our presidents of our union associations. So we all came together to plan this day, and it had their input in terms of how did this look and whether they thought it would be a wise idea.
Thank you. Trustee Campbell?
Are we committed to attend?
Oh yes, please do. And it's at the Cowichan Theatre and open to all. And there'll be some snacks following for all employees and special guests. Okay, moving on to the grade 12 career fair gathering. That will be again on September the 25th. This is where we bring all of our grade 12 students together. It will again be at the VIU site, potentially our new Cowichan Secondary School site. Just a little bit of a background with regard to this. I guess this was something that was initiated by DSAC, our District Student Advisory Committee group, where they really wanted to gather all of the grade 12s together, get to know each other early in the fall. And so we partner, the district partners with Careers. And at this point, we have it all organized. And again, this is an open invitation to any trustee who might want to attend. There's some great activities, some engaging activities for kids at the grade 12 level who might actually engage kids at the grade 6 level, but many things on the go. But also there are career opportunities and presentations for our grade 12 students to hear about, and also even look at potentially being a student at our own Cowichan VIU Center. Following that,
Just gonna say it was a great event last year, and I'm sure that'll happen again this year. There are a lot of opportunities for the people who attended.
and then on September the 30th is our Orange Shirt Day, and so I want to inform the board that we'll be honoring and recognizing that day as a district team, and just so you are aware of that. And I know that our Indigenous education will be working with our schools in terms of some of the activities that they can host as well. Moving on to 7.2.3, we have approved in principle, or I have approved in principle, an international student program trip that will take place spring break of 2020. And this is where our international students will be going to Ottawa and Toronto. And that's to specifically visit two universities, Carleton and the University of Toronto. So this is a Canadian trip. It's been approved, and in the future, just before more information will come to me with regard to that approval. All right. Now moving on to 7.3. And this will be for the board for board's action. 7.3.1 World Teachers Day is on October the 5th. That does happen to be a Saturday. It does limit some potential opportunities for all of us, but we can certainly honor and recognize the teachers beforehand. But I just want to alert the board that last year that there was a motion with regard to this event and this acknowledgement that is placed right here, and I just wanted to alert the board of that fact if they wanted to have the same similar motion from last year.
Trustee Hutchins?
So motion?
Moved by Trustee Hutchins, seconded by Trustee DeGroot. Any conversation? All Trustee Payne?
What does that mean? Appropriate recognition of World Teachers Day.
It means that the two of us get together and say, okay, this is what happened last year and historically, and therefore how can we move forward this year?
Translation, it's all about the chocolate.
Did we visit our schools with presents?
That's what happened last year.
Okay,
Yeah.
yes, I kind of wondered, that was the
Yes, that's what I understand, is that senior team worked with school trustees and we delivered chocolates and acknowledged that day. It wasn't on a Saturday, but we can certainly do something before the
Perfect.
Saturday.
Okay, thank you.
Can I also say we also delivered cards?
Oh,
thank you.
Oh, chocolates are really good.
They read the card back to front.
Motion's on the floor. All those in favor? Motion carries. Moving to 7.3.2.
All right. So as a follow-up from last year, we had a formal opening of our Mill Bay Nature School. It's a beautiful event, very grand event. But at this point in time, we have not formalized that it has a new name. So I'd like the board to consider that the Board of Education may look at renaming Mill Bay Elementary to Mill Bay Nature School.
Moved by Trustee Cross, seconded by Trustee Root. Conversation? All those in favor? Motion carries unanimously. Moving to 7.3.3.
All right, we have 6 new courses, board authority authorized courses, that I would like to propose that the board approve. As you can see, mindful mediation 10 to 12, leathercraft 11 and 12, and indigenous culture through visual arts 10. I would like to propose that the board approve these courses.
So motion?
Moved by Trustee Hutchins, seconded by Trustee Dorn. All those in favor? Motion carries. Moving to item 8, Secretary Treasurer, Mr. Sandquist.
Looks pretty bare, but it's, we have been busy this summer, most of my items have been on the closed agenda. I have nothing further.
Thank you very much, Mr. Sandquist. We appreciate all the work that you did last summer. I know that you did not take many holiday days. And I know many of the staff were also here all summer, and we really appreciate the work that you do. Thank you. Moving to item 9, committees and outside organizations. The first is summary of May 21st, 2019 advisory committee meeting. Trustee Croft.
I'd like to move that the board receive the summary of the advisory committee meeting of May 21st.
Moved by Trustee Croft, seconded by Trustee Thorne. All those in favor? Motion carries. Moving to highlights of the June 5th, 2019 DSAC meeting. Trustee Kevler, were you at that or?
I have no idea.
I'll
tell you the
I think there was a conflict with regard to scheduling for any board member to attend. I was there, and the minutes are part of the package, and it was, we acknowledged our grade 12 students with regard to the work that they had done by providing them with a certificate and a gift certificate, and I'm sure many of them will use that certificate to certainly add to some of their scholarship applications in terms of where they want to go. And we asked every single one of them who would be leaving DSAC that they share a little bit of where they were intending on going. And I'll tell you the great stories that they were sharing with us, because we had some of our students were attending local BIU to be a teacher in the future, but we had a couple of students who were going as far as Ontario with regard to pursuing maybe a role as a medical doctor in the future. So great student feedback. Also, we talked about the grade 12 barbecue, or the career fair that's coming up this September. And then finally, they were also able to give us feedback on feminine products that we are expected to put in all schools this coming year.
Thank you. Is there a mover to receive the report? Moved by Trustee Thorne, seconded by Trustee Hutchins. All those in favor? Motion carries. Moving to item 10, upcoming meetings and events. A, National Child Day, and the poster is attached to the agenda on page 67. Is there anyone that wishes to say anything at this point? We'll see it's in November. Okay, moving to item B, schedule of upcoming meetings and events on page 68. It's a long. Okay, so are there any comments on the schedule, Trustee Kim?
Could we request again from her who's our rotation of when we should be on the meetings? Like, this is great and our names are there, but it's not for the whole year.
Ah, yes, okay, we did request that last time.
If we could, it would be good.
If we could put it in the minutes, maybe, to record people on the rotations.
This is great that we're on here, it's awesome, but it's just not for the rest of the year.
Right. Trustee Richards?
I appreciate also we have 2 months right now, so
You have 2 months.
yes, September and October.
Oh, I see, yes,
And
November.
No, but I didn't mean that, I meant,
I know.
you know how last time we had
Health
the
and
health
safety and
committee
who
meetings,
is going.
yeah, well, I could be going, that was all.
Thank you, both of you are correct.
'Cause this is great.
Trustee Croft?
I just wanted to note that I think the vaping committee has been postponed until we find another date, right? So it actually, let's strike that off until we get a new date for that.
Thank you for pointing that out. Mr. Sanquist, did you want to talk about special board?
Yes, the auditors would like to meet with the board on September 26th. The presentation of the financial statements will happen in open at 5 p.m. Prior to that, we would have a closed session and hopefully an audit committee, so we'll need to talk to the chair of the audit committee and members of the audit committee about potential meeting earlier in that day.
So does September 26th at 4:30 for closed and 5 o'clock for open work for people?
Is it a
It's
Thursday?
around the audit.
It is.
Does that work? Yes? I've seen from anybody that it doesn't. Okay, so looks like those are good. Just wanted to refer to the Vista Fall Conference. How many people are going? it. And an iffy,
Yeah,
and an
I
iffy?
know.
I'll figure
Okay.
that out this week.
Okay, great.
I'll figure it out this week.
Okay, perfect. Well, it's
And I
just,
can't.
right, and Barb's at Provincial Council and Trustee Thorne is at the Indigenous Education Committee for BCSTA. It is important, I think, though, that we have a strong presence at any of the BCSTA selections. I think this is going to be a key year, and I think we should be here. Anything else on the agenda, the schedule? Okay, moving back to the agenda then. Item 11, new business, Remembrance Day ceremonies. We have gone to the 4 ceremonies in the past. Are we willing to do that again? Is there anyone who thinks we should not be involved with the Remembrance Day ceremonies? Okay, so we do need representatives, and we will of course try to have DSAC students with us. So is there someone for the Duncan? And Lake Cowichan?
I've been doing Lake Cowichan, but that's sort of your area, so
Or
I'm happy to do it again unless you prefer to.
I would be happy that you did it.
Okay,
Don't think I'm in town that weekend.
there's the 7th and Shanice. Okay, I get Shanice again. All right, perfect, thank you. Item 12, question period. Oh, sorry.
Madam Chair, we had a delegation of Fire Smart,
Yes.
and I think there was a question of somehow, when does that come on the agenda? Or is that a staff matter or is it a board matter?
The request was given to the board, however, the board normally refers that kind of request to staff. Do we want to make it
Refer,
official?
question of supporting the Fire Smart Education Initiative to staff for
Okay, moved by
Consideration.
trustee Hutchins, thank you, seconded by trustee Croft, all those in favor, motion carries. Moving back to question period from our audience. Any burning questions of the first day of school? All right, great, thank you. And moving to adjournment, motion to adjourn, moved by trustee